Hey warrior, we're always told that relationships, friends, family, love are what make life meaningful. That being loved and loving back is the key to happiness. But what if those same relationships start to chip away at your peace? What if all the noise, expectations, drama, misunderstanding starts drowning out your calm? Since we were kids, we've heard things like, blood is thicker than water, or never walk away from people who love you. But nobody really talks about how heavy it can feel to stay connected to someone who drains your spirit instead of lifting it. The truth is, in today's world, it's easy to confuse love with attachment, connection with obligation, loyalty with losing yourself. But here's the thing. Your peace matters more than any bond that costs you your sanity. Stoic wisdom puts it perfectly. Epictetus said, "We suffer not from events themselves, but from our judgment about them." And often it's not the fight, the breakup, or the misunderstanding that hurts most. It's the stories we tell ourselves about it, the judgment, the mental noise, and sometimes that noise comes wrapped in love or what looks like it. In this video, I'm sharing 9 lessons on why choosing peace over certain relationships isn't weakness. It's not giving up. It's choosing you. Because growth, it's not always about adding more. Sometimes it's about letting go of what no longer fits who you're becoming. So if you're ready to protect your peace without guilt, stay with me. And if this hits home, drop this in the comments. My peace is not up for sacrifice. Before we dive in, hit like and subscribe so you don't miss what's next in this journey. Let's get into it. Peace is not isolation, it's alignment. Number 1. Peace is not isolation, it's alignment. Let's talk about something a lot of people get wrong. When you choose peace, people assume you're cutting yourself off, like you've gone cold, distant, or that you're trying to live on some emotional island. But here's the truth, peace isn't isolation. It's alignment. It's not about shutting the world out. It's about getting clear on what and who deserves access to your energy. It's about putting your time, your heart, your attention into people and spaces that feel right, that feel safe, that feel like home. Epictetus said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." That applies to relationships too. Peace isn't about cutting off everyone. It's about being selective, knowing your energy is sacred and not everyone gets a seat at your table. Think of a river. A peaceful river doesn't isolate itself. It flows. It nourishes what it can, and it naturally avoids what might block or pollute it. That's alignment. And when you're aligned, something powerful happens. The right people just start showing up. You stop attracting chaos. You stop chasing people who only respond when there's drama. And instead you start magnetizing calm. People who get you, respect you, uplift you. You stop forcing things. You stop begging people to love you the way you need to be loved. You stop shrinking yourself to fit into broken dynamics. Because here's the truth. Real love shouldn't feel like a war. It shouldn't feel like you're constantly proving your worth just to be seen or heard. Peace teaches you that love, real love, is gentle. It supports you. It softens you. It doesn't drain you. And the more aligned you are, the more space you create, space to grow, space to breathe, space to become the version of you that doesn't need chaos to feel connected. You stop walking on eggshells. You stop managing other people's moods like it's your job. And for the first time in a long time, you get to put that energy back into yourself. And yes, some people won't like that. They'll say you've changed. They'll try to guilt you back into their drama. But that's not on you. Just like trees have to let go of old leaves to make room for new growth, you may have to let go of certain people to make space for who you're becoming. And that's not cruel. That's clarity. Choosing alignment over people-pleasing. That's how you finally realize being alone isn't scary. What's scary is being surrounded by people and still feeling alone. You start enjoying your own company. You find strength in solitude and you realize you're not lonely. You're just no longer leaking energy. That shift, it ripples into every part of your life. Your focus sharpens. Your goals get clearer, your confidence grows, and the people who truly belong in your life, they won't be threatened by your peace. They'll honor it because they found theirs too. Drop this in the comments if it resonates. I am not lonely. I am in alignment. Peace begins where people-pleasing ends. Number 2. Peace begins where people-pleasing ends. From a young age, many of us are conditioned to seek approval. We smile even when we're hurting. We agree just to avoid conflict. We say yes when every fiber of our being wants to say no. But let me ask you this. How many times have you betrayed your own peace just to be liked, loved, or understood? Seneca, another great Stoic philosopher, said, "If you live in harmony with nature, you will never be poor. If you live according to what others think, you will never be rich." What he meant is this. The richness of life isn't found in how others see you. It's in how you see and accept yourself, and people-pleasing strips that away. It's one of the quietest, most overlooked forms of self-abandonment. You don't even realize you're doing it until your peace is gone. You wake up one day exhausted, not from physical labor, but from emotional performance, pretending to be fine, pretending to be easygoing, pretending to not care. Choosing your peace means you stop performing. You stop asking, will they still love me if I say this? And start asking, will I still love myself if I don't? It's not selfish. It's self-honoring. When you stop pleasing people at the expense of your truth, some will call you difficult, others will call you selfish. But the right people, the ones who genuinely care, will call you real. And here's the truth. You were not born to constantly manage other people's comfort while neglecting your own inner peace. You were not born to water down your voice to avoid someone else's drought. Choosing your peace over the habit of people-pleasing may feel scary. You might fear losing connections, approval, even love. But what you gain is priceless. You gain respect for your own boundaries. You gain clarity on who's really for you. You gain yourself back. And that is the foundation of any real lasting peace. Peace doesn't come from being liked by everyone. It comes from liking yourself enough to stop needing that. Drop this affirmation in the comments. I choose my peace. Letting go is a form of self-respect. Number 3, letting go is a form of self-respect. We've been taught that holding on is strength, that letting go means you gave up, that if you walk away, you're weak or heartless. But the ancient Stoics knew better. Marcus Aurelius wrote, accept the things to which fate binds you and love the people with whom fate brings you together. But here's what's often left unsaid. Sometimes fate brings people into your life for a season. And respecting that season's end is its own kind of strength. Letting go isn't giving up. It's growing up. It's the moment you realize I can love someone and still choose peace. I can honor what we had and still protect what I need. I don't have to stay to prove I cared. That's not abandonment. That's evolution. Because when a relationship starts draining your energy, disrespecting your boundaries, or making you shrink just to survive it, staying isn't loyalty. It's loyalty to your own suffering. Real self-respect means asking, why am I holding on to something that's hurting me? And then having the courage to let go without guilt. We often hold on because we've been made to believe we're responsible for other people's happiness. But here's your freedom. You are not responsible for fixing anyone. Not their moods, not their wounds, not their growth. Your only responsibility is you, your energy, your peace, your truth. Letting go with self-respect means you don't need to make a dramatic exit. You don't need to explain yourself to people who never tried to understand you. You can just step back quietly, clearly, without shame, because your peace doesn't need their permission. And sometimes the hardest part isn't letting go of the person. It's letting go of the fantasy version of them. The potential, the maybe one day, the version you saw in your heart, not in their actions. But self-respect means believing people the first time they show you who they are, and knowing when it's time to stop rewriting the story. Letting go doesn't make you bitter. It makes you clear. It means you can wish someone well and still keep them out of your life. You can hold the lesson without holding the weight. And that space, the one that opens up when you finally release what's been heavy for too long, that's sacred. That's the space where peace returns, where better relationships begin, where you come back to life because you can't receive what's meant for you if your hands are still full of what's hurting you. Letting go with self-respect also means listening to your gut. If a relationship constantly makes you feel anxious, unseen, or like you're walking on eggshells, that feeling, that's information. Trust it. Sometimes letting go means ending it completely. Sometimes it just means stepping back, changing the rhythm, or loving someone from afar. There's no size-fits-all way to let go, but there is a wrong way. Holding on when your soul is already halfway out the door. And the most beautiful part, when you finally let go of what's not aligned with your worth, you make room for what? Is you begin to attract people who see you, who respect your boundaries because they have their own, who don't need you to shrink to be loved. So if this speaks to your soul, let it land. Let go not with anger, but with self-respect. Drop this in the comments if you're ready to release. Letting go is how I honor myself. Number 4, some distances are acts of love. Love doesn't always look like closeness. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone and for yourself is to create distance. This is one of the hardest truths to accept because we've been conditioned to believe that love means staying, fighting, and never giving up. But the Stoic philosopher Epictetus taught us, no one can hurt you without your permission. Sometimes loving someone means not giving them permission to hurt you anymore, even if that means loving them from far away. There's a difference between abandoning someone and creating healthy distance. Abandonment is running away from responsibility and care. Distance, when chosen mindfully, is actually taking responsibility for your own well-being, while still holding love in your heart. It's recognizing that you can wish someone well without being in their direct line of fire. Think about a parent bird teaching its young to fly. At some point, the parent must step back and let the baby bird try on its own. This isn't cruelty. It's necessary for growth. Sometimes our relationships need this same kind of space. Some people in our lives need to learn lessons that they can't learn while we're constantly rescuing them, enabling them, or absorbing the consequences of their choices. Distance as an act of love also protects the other person from the worst version of yourself. When you're constantly triggered, frustrated, or drained by someone, you're not showing up as your best self in that relationship. You might become reactive, resentful, or passive-aggressive. By creating space, you're preventing yourself from saying or doing things that could cause permanent damage to the connection. The ancient Stoics understood that we cannot control other people's actions, but we can control our responses. Sometimes the most controlling response is to remove yourself from situations that bring out parts of your personality that you don't respect. Distance isn't just protecting you from them. It's protecting them from a version of you that isn't aligned with your values. This kind of loving distance is especially important in family relationships where cutting tis completely might not be possible or desired. You can love your family members while still limiting your exposure to their dysfunction. You can show up for important events while declining to participate in the daily drama. You can offer support without sacrificing your peace. Creating distance also gives relationships room to breathe and potentially heal. Sometimes people need to miss you to appreciate you. Sometimes they need to experience the natural consequences of their behavior without you there to soften the impact. Your absence might be exactly what they need to recognize patterns they couldn't see while you were enabling or enduring them. The guilt that comes with choosing distance is often intense, especially if you're naturally empathetic or have been trained to prioritize others' needs above your own. But guilt is not always an indicator that you're doing something wrong. Sometimes guilt is just the feeling that comes with breaking old patterns and choosing yourself for the first time. Distance as love means you stop trying to save people who aren't asking to be saved. It means you stop trying to love people into changing. It means you stop believing that your sacrifice will somehow inspire their transformation. Real love sometimes means letting people experience the full weight of their choices without you, there to catch them every time they fall. This doesn't mean you become cold or uncaring. You can still send birthday wishes, offer prayers or positive thoughts, and remain open to reconciliation if genuine change occurs. But you do it all from a safe distance that protects your peace and preserves your well-being. The most beautiful outcome of loving distance is that it creates space for both people to grow. When you're no longer caught up in the daily dysfunction, you can work on yourself, heal your own wounds, and become the person you're meant to be. And sometimes from that healed place you might find that the relationship can be rebuilt on a healthier foundation. Drop this affirmation in the comments. Distance can be love. Peace is my choice. The power of saying no. Number 5. Peace teaches you the power of saying no. The word no might be Thesmolus' complete sentence in the English language, but it's also one of the most powerful tools for protecting your peace. Before you prioritize your inner calm, no feels impossible to say. It feels harsh, selfish, or mean. But when peace becomes your compass, no transforms from a word of rejection into a word of protection. As the Stoic Marcus Aurelius reminded us, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Your no is how you exercise that power. Most people who struggle with saying no aren't afraid of the word itself. They're afraid of the reaction they might receive. They're afraid of disappointing others, afraid of conflict, afraid of being seen as difficult or uncaring. But here's what peace teaches you. Other people's reactions to your boundaries are not your responsibility. Their comfort is not more important than your well-being. When you start choosing peace, you begin to understand that every yes to something that drains you is a no to something that could fulfill you. Every time you agree to plans that exhaust you, you're saying no to rest. Every time you take on someone else's responsibilities, you're saying no to your own priorities. Every time you absorb someone else's emotional chaos, you're saying no to your own mental health. Peace makes you selective, and that's exactly what you need to be. Not every invitation deserves acceptance. Not every request deserves consideration. Not every emergency is actually your emergency. When you're at peace, you can evaluate requests based on your actual capacity, your values, and your well-being, rather than your fear of disappointing others. The power of no isn't just in declining what doesn't serve you. It's in the space it creates for what does. When you stop saying yes to everything, You create room for the opportunities, relationships, and experiences that truly align with your goals and values. Your no to the wrong things becomes a yes to the right things. Learning to say no also teaches you about your own worth. When you can decline requests without feeling guilty, you're demonstrating to yourself that your time, energy, and peace have value. You're showing yourself that you matter, that your needs are important, and that you deserve to protect what's precious to you. Peace reveals that most people will respect your boundaries once you start enforcing them consistently. The people who become angry or manipulative when you say no are usually the ones who are benefiting from your inability to set limits. Their reaction tells you everything you need to know about their intentions and the nature of your relationship with them. There's also power in how you say no. You don't have to be rude or aggressive. You can be kind but firm. You can say, "I won't be able to do that," without providing a detailed explanation or justification. You can say, "That doesn't work for me." Without apologizing for having limits, your no can be gentle but non-negotiable. The more you practice saying no to what doesn't serve you, the easier it becomes to say yes to what does. You develop confidence in your decision-making. You trust your instincts about what feels right and what doesn't. You stop second-guessing yourself every time you set a boundary. Peace also teaches you that saying no to people doesn't mean you don't love them. You can love someone and still refuse to enable their bad behavior. You can care about someone and still decline to participate in their drama. You can wish someone well and still protect yourself from their chaos. The ultimate power of saying no is that it puts you back in the driver's seat of your own life. Instead of being pulled in every direction by other people's needs and demands, you get to choose where you invest your precious time and energy. You become the author of your own story rather than a supporting character in everyone else's. Drop this affirmation in the comments. I enter my peace with a powerful no. Number 6. Peace doesn't always feel. Peace doesn't always feel peaceful at first. Here's a truth that might surprise you. Choosing peace over chaos doesn't immediately feel peaceful. In fact, it often feels uncomfortable, lonely, and even wrong at first. This is because your nervous system has become accustomed to drama, crisis, and constant stimulation. When you suddenly remove yourself from toxic dynamics, your body and mind might actually miss the adrenaline rush of dysfunction. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus wisely noted, "Wealth consists in not having great possessions but in having few wants." This applies to emotional chaos too. True peace comes from wanting less drama, not more comfort. When you first start prioritizing your peace, you might experience what feels like withdrawal symptoms. Your phone might feel too quiet without the constant stream of dramatic texts. Your days might feel too calm without someone else's crisis to manage. Your mind might feel restless without problems to solve or people to fix. This discomfort doesn't mean you're making the wrong choice. It means you're breaking an addiction to chaos that you didn't even realize you had. The initial discomfort of choosing peace often comes with guilt. You might feel selfish for not being available to everyone all the time. You might worry that you're becoming cold or uncaring. You might question whether you're doing the right thing when you see others struggling, and you choose not to jump in to save them. But this guilt is actually a sign that you're growing. It's the feeling that comes with breaking patterns that no longer serve you. During this transition period, you might also face resistance from others. People who are used to having unlimited access to your time, energy, and emotional labor might push back when you start setting boundaries. They might accuse you of changing, of not being the person you used to be. And they're right. You are changing. You're becoming someone who values their own well-being enough to protect it. The loneliness that can come with choosing peace is different from the loneliness of being surrounded by people who drain you. When you were caught up in dysfunctional relationships, you felt lonely even when you weren't alone because those connections weren't nourishing your soul. The loneliness of peace is cleaner. It's simply the absence of the right people rather than the presence of the wrong ones. This temporary discomfort is actually your psyche adjusting to a new normal. Just like your eyes need time to adjust when you move from a dark room into bright light, your emotional system needs time to adjust to the brightness of peace after living in the darkness of chaos. The adjustment period is necessary and temporary. You might also find yourself questioning your decision during quiet moments when there's no crisis to manage, no drama to navigate, no one to rescue. You might wonder if you're missing something important, but what you're actually missing is the exhaustion, the stress, the constant worry, and the feeling of never being enough. What you're gaining is space to discover who you are when you're not defined by other people's problems. The discomfort of early peace also comes from having to face yourself without distractions. When you're not constantly focused on fixing everyone else, you have to look at your own life, your own goals, your own needs. This self-reflection can be uncomfortable if you've been avoiding it by staying busy with other people's issues. But here's the beautiful truth. The discomfort is temporary, but the peace is lasting. As you continue to prioritize your well-being, the guilt fades, the loneliness transforms into solitude, and the quiet becomes a sanctuary rather than a source of anxiety. You begin to appreciate the calm. You start to treasure the absence of drama. You realize that boring is actually beautiful. When the alternative is chaos, the peace that felt foreign at first begins to feel like home. Your nervous system settles into this new rhythm. You discover that you actually prefer the gentle flow of a peaceful life to the exhausting roller coaster of dysfunctional relationships. What once felt uncomfortable becomes your new comfort zone, a much healthier one. Drop this affirmation in the comments. Even when it's hard, I choose peace. The more peaceful you become, the less you engage. Number 7, the more peaceful you become, the less you engage. There's a profound shift that happens when you truly embrace peace as your priority. You stop feeling the need to engage with every argument, respond to every provocation, or defend yourself against every criticism. The ancient Stoic Seneca observed, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay, but the greatest remedy for chaos is often complete non-engagement." Peace teaches you that not every battle is worth fighting. And in fact, most of them aren't worth your energy at all. When you're operating from a place of inner calm, you develop what could be called spiritual immunity to other people's drama. Their attempts to pull you into arguments bounce off you like rain off an umbrella. Their provocative texts don't trigger immediate responses. Their dramatic stories don't create urgency in your nervous system. You become like a mountain unmoved by the storms that rage around it. This doesn't mean you become cold or uncaring. Instead, you become discerning. You learn to distinguish between situations that genuinely require your attention and those that are just seeking your reaction. You recognize the difference between someone who needs support and someone who feeds off conflict. You understand that some people create chaos specifically to get attention, and your non-engagement is actually the kindest response you can give. The less you engage with toxicity, the more energy you have for what truly matters. Instead of spending hours crafting the perfect response to someone's inflammatory message, you use that time for activities that nourish your soul. Instead of losing sleep over someone's opinion of you, you rest peacefully, knowing that their perception doesn't define your reality. Peace also teaches you that silence is often the most powerful response. When someone is trying to provoke you, your silence says more than any argument could. It communicates that you're not available for their drama, that you're operating on a different frequency, and that you have more valuable things to do with your time and energy. You start to realize that many of the conversations you used to get pulled into were actually just games. Power struggles disguised as discussions. Manipulation tactics dressed up as communication. When you stop playing these games, they lose their power over you. The people who are using these tactics either have to find healthier ways to interact with you, or they naturally drift away from your life. Non-engagement also means you stop trying to convince people who don't want to be convinced. You stop explaining yourself to people who are determined to misunderstand you. You stop defending your choices to people who will criticize them, regardless of what you say. You recognize that some people's minds are already made up, and your words won't change that. The beauty of this approach is that it creates space for genuine connections. When you're not wasting energy on superficial conflicts, you have more to invest in relationships that are built on mutual respect, understanding, and support. You attract people who appreciate your peaceful energy because they're seeking peace in their own lives. Your non-engagement becomes a form of self-respect. It shows that you value your peace more than you value being right. It demonstrates that you'd rather be happy than win an argument. It proves that you understand the difference between standing up for yourself and getting dragged down to someone else's level. People might interpret your non-engagement as weakness, but those who truly know you understand it's actually strength. It takes incredible inner power to remain calm when others are trying to disturb your peace. It takes wisdom to recognize which battles are worth fighting and which ones are just distractions from your real purpose. The most liberating aspect of non-engagement is that it puts you back in control of your emotional state. Instead of being reactive to other people's moods, behaviors, or opinions, you get to choose how you respond or whether you respond at all. Your peace becomes your power and your silence becomes your strength. Drop this affirmation in the comments. I protect my peace by choosing not to engage. Choosing peace exposes what was never real. Number 8. Choosing peace exposes what was never real. When you start prioritizing your peace over people-pleasing, something remarkable and sometimes painful happens. the masks come off. Relationships that seemed solid begin to crumble. People who claim to love you unconditionally suddenly have conditions. Friends who said they'd always be there disappear when you're no longer available to meet their every need. The Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Everything fades and quickly turns to myth. When you choose peace, you discover that some relationships were already myths, beautiful stories you told yourself, about connections that were never as real as you believed. This revelation can be heartbreaking at first. You might feel betrayed, confused, or angry when people react negatively to your newfound boundaries. You might wonder how relationships that felt so important could dissolve so quickly when you simply started valuing yourself. But this exposure isn't a loss, it's a gift. It's clarity disguised as pain. Truth wearing the mask of disappointment. The relationships that were built on your availability rather than your authentic self cannot survive when you become unavailable to drama, chaos, or constant giving without receiving. These connections were transactional from the beginning. Even if you didn't realize it, you were providing something. Entertainment, emotional labor, problem solving, financial support, or simply an audience for their complaints, and they were providing the illusion of connection in return. When you choose peace, you stop performing these roles, and suddenly the relationship has no foundation left to stand on. The person who used to call you every day with their problems stops calling when you're no longer willing to be their unpaid therapist. The friend who always needed favors becomes distant when you start saying no. The family member who demanded your constant emotional support labels you as selfish when you prioritize your own well-being. This exposure process is actually a form of protection. It reveals who was genuinely invested in your happiness and who was just comfortable with your sacrifices. It shows you which relationships were based on mutual respect and which ones required you to shrink yourself to keep others comfortable. It's a painful but necessary sorting process that separates the authentic connections from the convenient ones. Real relationships don't fall apart when you start taking care of yourself. Genuine friend, celebrate your growth even when it means they have less access to you. True family members want you to be happy and healthy, even if it requires them to adjust their expectations. Authentic love doesn't punish you for having boundaries. It respects them. The people who remain in your life after you choose peace are the ones who were there for the right reasons all along. They didn't need you to be constantly available, endlessly giving, or perpetually struggling to feel connected to you. They loved you for who you were, not what you could do for them. These relationships often become deeper and more meaningful once the superficial dynamics are stripped away. Sometimes the exposure reveals that certain relationships were held together by shared dysfunction rather than genuine compatibility. You might realize that you and certain people only connected when you were both in crisis, complaining about your lives, or bonding over mutual struggles. When you find peace and start focusing on positive growth, these connections naturally fade because they were built on a foundation of shared misery rather than shared values. The exposure process also reveals your own patterns. You might discover that you were attracted to people who needed fixing because it made you feel valuable. You might realize that you stayed in draining relationships because chaos felt familiar and peace felt foreign. You might recognize that you confused intensity with intimacy, mistaking dramatic connections for deep ones. This awareness is incredibly valuable because it helps you make better choices moving forward. You learn to recognize the red flags you used to ignore. You understand the difference between healthy vulnerability and emotional dumping. You can spot manipulative tactics that once worked on you. The beautiful outcome is that once the fake relationships are exposed and released, you create space for real ones to develop. You attract people who appreciate your peaceful energy and want to contribute to it rather than disturb it. Drop this affirmation in the comments. My peace revealed what was never love. Music. Number 9. Peace is the beginning of a whole new life. Choosing peace over toxic relationships isn't just about ending what's not working. It's about beginning what's possible. When you finally prioritize your inner calm over external chaos, you don't just change your relationships, you change your entire life trajectory. The ancient Stoic Epictetus taught, "No one can hurt you without your permission." But here's what he didn't say directly. When you stop giving people permission to disturb your peace, you give life permission to surprise you in the most beautiful ways. Peace becomes the fertile ground where your authentic self can finally take root and flourish. All those dreams you put on hold while managing other people's emergencies suddenly have space to breathe. All that energy you spent trying to fix broken relationships becomes available to build the life you actually want. All that mental space that was occupied by worry, drama, and conflict becomes a sanctuary for creativity, growth, and possibility. When you're no longer constantly drained by dysfunctional relationships, you discover reserves of energy you forgot you had. You wake up in the morning without immediately checking your phone for the latest crisis. You go to bed at night without your mind racing through conversations, conflicts, and problems that aren't even yours to solve. This newfound energy becomes fuel for pursuing goals that actually matter to you. Your relationship with yourself transforms completely without the constant noise of other people's opinions, criticisms, and demands. You can finally hear your own voice. You remember what you actually enjoy, what truly interests you, what genuinely makes you happy. You reconnect with parts of yourself that got lost in the shuffle of people-pleasing and peacekeeping. The clarity that comes with peace is extraordinary. Decisions that once felt impossible become obvious. Career changes that seemed too risky suddenly feel necessary. Goals that felt selfish start feeling essential. When you're not constantly second-guessing yourself based on other people's reactions, you can trust your own instincts and make choices aligned with your authentic desires. Your physical health often improves dramatically when you choose peace. The stress of maintaining toxic relationships takes a toll on your body that you might not fully realize until it's gone. Your sleep improves, your appetite normalizes, your anxiety decreases, and your overall vitality increases. Peace isn't just good for your soul, it's medicine for your entire system. New opportunities seem to appear out of nowhere when you're operating from a peaceful state. This isn't magic, it's focus. When your attention isn't constantly pulled toward drama and dysfunction, you can notice possibilities that were always there but previously invisible. You have the mental clarity to recognize good opportunities and the emotional stability to pursue them. The quality of new relationships you attract changes completely when you're anchored in peace. You no longer draw in people who need fixing, who thrive on chaos or require you to dim your light. Instead, you magnetize individuals who appreciate calm, who contribute to your well-being, and who inspire you to grow. These connections feel different, easier, more supportive, more reciprocal. Your goals become more authentic and achievable when they're not influenced by other people's expectations or fears. You stop pursuing things to prove your worth to people who will never be satisfied anyway. You start pursuing things because they genuinely excite you, align with your values, or contribute to your growth. Peace also opens you up to experiences you never allowed yourself to have. Maybe you finally take that art class you've been putting off. Maybe you start that business you've been dreaming about. Maybe you travel to that place you've always wanted to see. When you're not constantly managing other people's emotions, you have permission to prioritize your own experiences. The most beautiful part of this new life is that it feels sustainable. Unlike the exhausting cycle of toxic relationships, peace creates more peace. Healthy choices lead to healthier outcomes. Good boundaries attract respectful people. Self-care increases your capacity for genuine care of others. This new life isn't perfect, but it's yours. It's authentic, aligned, and full of possibilities that were waiting for you to create space for them. Drop this affirmation in the comments. My peace is the beginning of my becoming. Choosing peace over a relationship, a habit, a pattern, or a history is not easy, but it's always worth it. You're not choosing loneliness, you're choosing clarity. You're not choosing coldness, you're choosing emotional safety. You're not walking away because you don't care. You're walking away because you finally do about yourself, your well-being, your worth. Ancient Stoic wisdom teaches us that we are only as strong as the thoughts we allow and the emotions we manage, that our outer life will always reflect the state of our inner world. And in a world that rewards noise, speed, and overextension, choosing peace is a radical act of courage. You've earned the right to rest, to breathe, to exist without being constantly triggered or tested. And yes, it will change you, but it will also reveal you. So, here's your final reminder. You are not wrong for wanting peace. You are not broken for walking away. You are not weak for letting go. You are wise. You are healing. You are becoming. And peace is your birthright. If this video touched something deep in you, don't keep it to yourself. Like it. Leave final affirmation in the comments. I am at peace. And that is enough. Share it with someone who needs to hear that they're allowed to choose peace. And subscribe to the channel for more soul-centered truth and healing. Because you don't have to fight for your peace anymore. You just have to stop fighting against yourself.